Today, find out how to improve your body and soul. Certified personal trainer Shawn Phillips is here. He's got all kinds of great advice about things you can do for your mental and physical well-being. Great to have you here today, Shawn.
Thank you.
So I should say, for those of you who've watched this show regularly, and you should watch this show regularly, my personal trainer, Rob Rugg, has moved. He's out of town. So I have found Shawn. Shawn is the new Rob.
Replacement.
So I hear you have a three-dimensional philosophy. Is that right, Shawn?
Yeah, you know, what I do with my clients is a bit different than most trainers do with people. It's more one-dimensional, more focused on the physiological aspect. And for my clients, not only do I focus on the nutritional, strength training, and cardio, because those are the three components to really transform a person physiologically or their aesthetics, but also on the emotional, psychological, and spiritual as well.
Okay.
So my approach is more of the integration of all the different components, so that a person, I call it more like the evolution of self, yes, so they can focus on the physiological and the emotional, psychological, and spiritual. I think that's most relevant to people.
You know, and that goes back to the Greeks, because, you know, the idea of body and soul, or,
exactly,
you know, strong mind, strong body,
exactly,
and all of it together. So, and I know you were a philosophy major too.
Yeah, econ and philosophy.
Yes.
So I kind of, you know, I tie this in, and I love to read. I read a lot of books on quantum physics, spirituality, philosophy, psychology, and
so you can philosophize and talk physics while you're working out as well.
Yeah, exactly, right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you know, to a certain extent, people, when they come to me, they come pretty much for aesthetics. You know, primary goal is, you know, what's the most effective and efficient way to lose body fat? That's pretty much the bottom line, which is fantastic. You know, it's good that people come to me to finally make a change in their life. But you know, there's kind of a backdoor approach that I start addressing different issues.
Okay.
Because fundamentally, obesity is a symptom. You know, and in life, you know, basically there's cause and effect relationships in life. Reason why people have they're overweight, or why they have chronic fatigue or depression.
Sure.
So the question is, what is the root cause?
And by the way, what about 60% of Americans are obese?
Yeah, statistically it's pretty high. And you know, some of that's cultural. You know, some of that's poor education, and a lot of it starts, you know, in high school. You'll see kids. You know, you look at kids' diets; it's atrocious. And, you know, to a certain extent, you know, with respect to teenagers, I think parents can put kids at a disadvantage when not putting a child, whether he's 6 years old or 16, on proper diet and exercise, etc., because that kid is going to perform not as well as his peers who are.
You know, I just saw something on the news the other night. Now that I think here in California especially, some of the schools are starting to change their lunch programs so that they're going to more like Whole Foods instead of, you know, the Ho-Hos or something.
Exactly, and that's wise. I think, you know, part of the performance academically will increase because of that. But also, too, what I do with my clients is bring in a certain amount of awareness, because there's certain aspects of, I call it the transformation of self or evolution of self, that I think is important, because you know, the physiological aspect is extremely important and critical in a person's life. I think a lot of someone's energy, whether they're in corporate America or an entrepreneur or a singer or whatever, dancer, it doesn't necessarily matter. A lot of their energy comes from the food they eat. So, you know, the nutritional side, and in addition to the exercises, can definitely contribute.
And that was something that was important for you personally, right? I mean, that's really how you developed philosophy.
Yeah. Well, for me, what ended up happening with me is after graduating from UCLA, I spent 4 years in banking, and you know,
and that'll do you in, if anything.
Yeah, you know, that was tough. And for me, what ended up happening was I went down that path. It was very successful, and then what ended up happening was the market began to collapse, and so my clients, you know, one by one began to fade. Because all their assets were diminishing. They had a lot of restricted stock within one company. And, you know, all that wealth was evaporated. So they had nothing left to invest. Well, it basically left me without a business, and I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. I was suffering from chronic fatigue. And I took 6 months off, and I call that my dark ages, my dark period. And now I feel like I'm more in my golden age. And to a certain extent, as I made that transition, I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about you know, how to help people, but in a different way outside of the financial realm.
So how did you go from the dark ages to the golden ages?
Painfully. Yeah, really. It was really painful. I mean, just like anything in life, change comes from pain.
No pain, no gain, as my boxing teacher
Yeah,
says.
exactly. And the thing is, when people encounter pain, they can kind of go in two directions. You could either be sent off to the loony bin, or you can kind of evolve as a human being and learn about yourself, what's the lessons to be learned, and begin to really look within and gain greater insight. And so I took that path versus, becoming crazy.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, you didn't go to the loony bin, so hey, that's pretty good.
Right. Yeah, so, but that was definitely critical for me, because as I do seminars and corporate speaking events and TV stuff, it helps me empathize a lot with my clients, and you get a better understanding of where they're at in life. Because, as we talked before, being corporate America is very hard, when you have a high-stress job, and it's easy to escape into addictions. I mean, it could be alcohol, it could be workaholic, it could be drugs. There's a lot of addictions. It could be TV watching, like for 5-6 hours at a time, just to escape.
That may be the worst.
Yeah.
Unless you're watching this show, in which case it's the best. That's okay. We don't mind that.
But we all have our addictions, and I guess there's a certain point where you need to become just aware of them. And I think that, through the process that I've gone through,
Did you have any addictions?
My addiction began to be like videos and TV watching, and computer games. And just spending enormous amounts of time watching TV. And it was a way for me to escape. And once I started becoming more aware of that and realizing that, I was this had to stop, And it was tough, because we all fall into escapes that, we want to get away from reality, from the stresses, the emotional stresses of life, the financial stresses, and we all go through that. But, what I've put together, and actually I think I've mentioned this to you, I'm putting together a fitness video. Yes. I focus on the exercise stuff, the nutrition stuff, and then more of the spiritual, emotional, psychological. You begin to learn more about yourself, and you're able to cope with, hard times. So with a lot of my clients, I act more as a catalyst of change. Not necessarily saying you should do X, Y, Z, because everybody's path to change is going to be different.
And you said one key component of creating that change is the strength training, or the physical part of the work?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done quite a bit of research and reading, and primarily for strength training, the few things that are most important factors of strength training. One is progressive overload, which is a very simple, basic factor.
And the idea behind that is?
Yeah, every time you go in the gym, you want to get stronger. And every time you go in the gym, you want to go up in weight. Now, a way to do that and the way to monitor that is keep a log.
Okay.
Which I tell people that, and their initial response is like, I don't even feel like doing it. It doesn't take that much time, and it's better than any supplement you could possibly ever take.
So keep a journal and...
Yeah.
Because if you're too lazy to keep the journal, then something's probably wrong.
Yeah, I don't even know what's the point of going to the gym, because it's impossible to memorize how many sets you do. I mean, you'll go over within a workout week, if you work out 2 or 3 times, you'll do 30, 40 sets, and you remember the exact weight is impossible, from week to week to week. It just doesn't happen. So what ends up happening is people go in the gym, they do the exact same weight as last week, as the week before, as the week before, and they wonder why they don't progress.
Yeah, that should keep you motivated, because you can see that you're improving and getting better.
It becomes a trainer, basically. It's almost like the little workout log becomes your trainer, because it tells you what to do. All you have to do is look down, right? And it tells you how much weight you did. If you say you did bench last week, it was 100 pounds. Well, this week you try 102 or 105. It's not rocket science, but it makes a big difference over time. And the bottom line is, the more strength you have, the more muscle you have. The more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism. The faster your metabolism, the more you burn fat. And also shapes your body. What's that?
Cause and effect there.
Yeah, cause and effect. Yeah, well, that's the economics background. Everything is a relationship, kind of like a chain reaction or domino effect. It's the same thing with strength training. When you go up in weight, there's a group of things that happen. Certain relationships that occur. And the bottom line is, you lose fat, you get stronger, you have more shape in your body.
Sure. I think we all would like that.
Yeah, I mean, one major misconception that I've seen, especially with females, is that they have a tendency not to do strength training.
Okay.
And their argument is, if I do strength training, I will get too big, which is a common misconception. It's unfortunate, because what gives a female or male shape is strength training, is muscle.
Muscles.
So say you strip down all their body fat, they're going to look like a string bean, So it's important for them to put on muscle, not only for their metabolism, because it speeds up their metabolism, but it'll give them more of shape.
Uh-huh.
You know.
And you said, well, it really works both ways because so the women want to do cardio and not strength training, but then the guys want to do strength training
and not really that much cardio. Yeah, so it's definitely a balance, which is critical. So you need to balance the nutritional aspect, strength training aspect, cardio aspect.
Uh-huh.
You know, so but one of the critical factors definitely in strength training is definitely the progressive overload. Also, another point too. With men, when they're shaping their body, one common mistake that I see is they have a bad tendency to what's called mirroritis. So they work out a lot of chest, a lot of arms, right? No legs. So they look like a tree. You know, big up top, small at the bottom.
My brother and I always call that like the turtle look.
Yeah, right.
Like a turtle because they got that.
Yeah, it's just and to a certain extent, when you look at aesthetics, I mean, you take Roman or Greek statues, and there's a certain sense of proportional.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, exactly. Look like a Greek statue.
When I'm in the museums, I wonder. I think,
yeah,
wow,
that could have been me.
Do it? Yeah.
That's what I'm shooting for. Him, David. Yeah.
And they didn't have. By the way, that's a whole other subject. But I'm wondering. I don't know what kind of weights they used back then or what.
You know what
whatever they did was working.
Well, there's this one funny story called, what is it called? It's a Greek story about Milo, the cow or whatever. But anyway, it's this guy named Milo, and he grew up on a farm, whatever. And
he had a cow, or
he had a cow.
Had a cow. Okay.
Calf. Right? He had a calf. And so he took this calf, and every day he'd walk 100 yards in a circle with the calf. Because it was just born, it's a small calf. Maybe it was a 50-pound calf, right?
He was carrying the calf, or
carrying the calf for 100 yards. Okay. Every day he would do that. Well, of course, the calf got bigger. So the calf went 50 pounds to 55 pounds to 60, and every day the calf gets bigger, and every day Milo would do his lap. Well, finally, the calf turned into a bull, and Milo got stronger, and that illustrates the point of progressive overload.
And then one day the bull gored him to death, right?
Yeah, the other day the bull ate him. No.
Got tired of being. And so there you have it, folks. Just carry a calf around your backyard.
Yeah, go buy a calf. You don't need a gym.
Hey, it might be cheaper over the long run. I don't know.
Just make sure you stay away from the horns. But yeah, so that's pretty much a summary of strength training. It's a very basic principle that does not get applied. And the way to apply progressive overload is using a journal.
Okay.
So.
Now, you said one thing, too. These days, you hear a lot. I hear this a lot from previous and past trainers, and or just read about it a lot. The core. You hear a lot about the core training versus like more strength training.
Yeah,
and I know you have a lot of thoughts on
that.
that.
I'm very opinionated when it comes to that. I personally think core training is very trendy thing. Almost like the zero fat diets in the 80s were trendy. The low carb diet right now is trendy.
Very trendy.
The core stuff is becoming very trendy. And I do believe, to a certain extent, core training is important to correct postural imbalances.
Okay.
So maybe 10 minutes can be allocated to core training. For people that don't know what core training is, it's people that have postural imbalance, like when they walk, their feet, walk out, or they walk pigeon-toed, or they slouch. There's certain, right.
Whenever people say posture, I always have to watch it.
Got a postural imbalance. No, so it corrects a lot of that, and it's not the end-all, be-all. A lot of the stuff that really changes a person's body is just basic meat and potato stuff that's been around forever. Like you read books from the 50s and 60s, it's stuff that's been around forever. It's all based on progressive overload. Very simple concept, but core training is almost like there's all this information. It's so confusing. And what I try to do with my clients is make it very simple. We go up and weight every week. That's it. And you'll have a better body.
And so I think you said core training, it's kind of like making it more of cardio kind of workout.
Yeah, that's another problem too. I mean, cardio should be isolated and separated from strength training because the primary purpose of strength training is to gain muscle.
Okay.
The primary purpose of cardio is to burn fat. That's it. They're separate and distinct. Another trend is circuit training. Circuit training is like bringing cardio into the gym. So what it is basically you're going to go from exercise, and wait 20 seconds in between sets.
All right.
And really what gives out first is not your muscles, it's your lung capacity. Your heart rate's skyrocketing, you're like, you can't breathe, and you really can't lift that much weight because your cardio capacity is kaput. So it's best to isolate.
And take a break between the sets.
Exactly. Anywhere from 1 to 4 minutes depending on how advanced. Beginners can do 1 minute. Intermediate, 2 to 3, more advanced, 3 to 4. Like you get a Gold's Gym. Some of the guys will sit around for 4 or 5 minutes before they do a set because they're lifting really heavy weight. So a lot of it's to get your heart rate to come back down. because you're not doing heart rate training or respiratory type of training. You're doing strength training. And your cardio, you stick to cardio. So that's a very important point, and I think people can kind of get lost in that. It's good to take time in between sets until you're fully rested.
Okay. Sometimes, I feel like if I'm sitting there too long, well, how long should you wait between sets? Because I feel like...
it definitely depends on the level of advancement. Beginners can do about 1 minute.
Okay.
Intermediate can do 1 to 3 minutes. And a lot of it, too, depends on the body part. If you do arms, you don't need that much rest for arms. You can do 45 seconds, a minute. But if you do back or legs, try doing squats and doing it in 60 seconds. I mean, you're still exhausted. So maybe you wait 2 minutes. So
you said intermediate, actually, you take a bit longer break than beginner.
For the most part, yeah, because intermediate they're lifting more weight.
Okay.
And there's a higher probability or likelihood that they need more time between sets. Beginners, the weight is so light that they're in their capacity.
Okay. And would that be true then for advanced as well, that you would take
advanced,
more time?
Usually the time in between sets is longer.
Okay.
From what I've seen and experienced and researched. It could be anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes. Depending on the client, But progressive overload is probably the most. Progressive overload and the journal, the workout log, are the two most important points.
Okay.
One other side fact thing that I'll mention too.
Sure.
Is important is comfort zone.
Okay.
The way the body hypertrophies or adapts or evolves physiologically, you can imagine your comfort zone being in this. Okay, say you're doing squats.
I think my comfort zone's about here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, say it's like that, It doesn't really matter. The whole point is to get here, a little bit out of your comfort zone. You don't have to kill yourself and go out here and have a heart attack. But what the body is going to adapt when it's out of your comfort zone.
Okay.
So get out of the comfort zone. The way you do that is go to failure.
Oh.
So say you shoot for 10 reps, 10 repetitions of bench press. You get 8. That's great. Why? Because you went to failure. Say if you got all 10 and you can do 14, you're not going to failure.
So in the gym, failure is a good thing.
It's a very good thing because it causes the body to adapt and evolve. You get stronger. When you get stronger, it's obviously you put on more muscle. The more muscle you have, the more metabolism, da-da-da-da.
How much, when you talk about putting on muscle and progressive overload and all that kind of stuff, how much muscle... I always hear when people say when you lose weight, you lose a pound or 2 a week or something like that.
Correct.
How much should you gain?
I would say...
if you're trying to put on muscle,
yeah,
not
it depends
fat.
on the level of advancement. Beginners can gain a lot more muscle than advanced. I usually tell people, anywhere between 1 to 2 pounds a month.
Okay.
That's why it goes back to the misconception that women have, when they think they're going to actually get big if they do strength training. Well, think about it mathematically. You can lose up to 6 to 8 pounds of fat in a month. Healthy.
Wow.
Fat. Not body weight. Fat. The most you can gain of muscles, maybe 1 to 2 pounds, maybe 3. So net, you're still losing body weight. So say you lose 6 to 8 pounds, you gain 2 to 3 pounds of muscle, you're still in a negative.
Okay.
So you can imagine the diameter of your leg, the diameter of your arm, everything's going to still shrink.
So you want to concentrate more on converting the fat to muscle.
Well, there's not it's not necessarily a one-to-one conversion, but it basically what ends up happening is your muscles get stronger, so they get bigger. Okay. Your fat reserves get drained as you're exercising. So your composition of your body begins to change. Your aesthetics begins to change.
Okay.
Yeah. So and that's that's pretty much for that.
And how much should you work out every week?
That also depends on a person's work schedule, depends on how dedicated they are. I mean, they could do 2 days of cardio, 2 to 4 days of cardio, 2 to 4 days of working out. A lot of it depends on the goal, too.
Okay.
If a person's goal is to lose body fat, chances are they probably should skew or lean more doing more cardio than strength training. So they could do 1 to 2 days of strength training per week. They could do 2 to 5 days of cardio. Chances are they probably want to do 4 days of cardio, 2 days of strength training. If a person wants to gain muscle and lose fat about the same rate, they could do like a 3-3. 3 days of strength training, 3 days of cardio. If a person just wanted to build muscle, like an ectomorph, which is a really skinny body type, they don't need to do cardio. They're already a skinny type. It's only like 20% of the population. They would do very little cardio, maybe 1 day of cardio, but do maybe 4 days of strength training. So the allocation or the breakdown depends on the goal. So a person would have to ask themselves, okay, what is my goal? And given what their goal is, they would allocate their days accordingly.
So you wouldn't have to work out 6 days a week or something the way that, I mean, probably hardcore bodybuilders do or
No,
something.
no,
or,
not at all. I mean, most people don't want to look like a bodybuilder. I mean, you ask the average girl or guy, they just want to look fit and healthy and athletic. You know, bodybuilders, they take it to the extreme. I think they've added a lot of fantastic information, books, resources, because there's a lot of anecdotal evidence because they experience everything. I mean, the industry is ridden with drugs, which is unfortunate. But
well, this is certified personal trainer Shawn Phillips, and I lied. Actually, we only covered the body today, but if you come back, we'll talk more about the mind. How's that?
There you go. Sounds great.
Well, thanks, Shawn, for being here today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Never enough time to cover all this stuff, you know.